Hey everybody, welcome to Pammy Out Loud, my first solo episode. I am sitting here in my home in Colorado Springs, recording by myself with my friend Shelly in the background so I can have a little moral support. I'm very excited to be here, and I'm wanting to tell you about why I'm doing this, and probably more important, why should you even care? So a lot of this, it all started a long time ago with some TMJ issues. And what happened for me was I have long suffered with TMJ. I've had lots of pain, headaches, all kinds of things. One time after dealing with mouth guards and all sorts of treatments, massage therapy, physical therapy, I went to a oral surgeon, and he was convinced that my mouth, one of the problems besides the fact that I had this pain, was that my mouth does not open very far, which is almost ironic for as much as I talk, but my mouth doesn't open. So I go to see this oral surgeon one day, and he is convinced that I have there's a little disc back there in the back of your jaw that works kind of like your knee meniscus, and he's convinced that I have a slip disc back there, even though MRIs did not show it. So this is a number of years ago that I'm going to see him. I go in, and he's like, I'm convinced you need to do this. And he put me under, and what he was going to do was manipulate my jaw basically to put this disc back into place. So I go, I'm under general anesthetic. I come back out of it later. I go for the follow-up appointment. And he said to me, girlfriend, I have never seen somebody's jaw in as much spasm as yours is. He said, I was unable to do anything because the muscles were constantly contracting, and he couldn't work inside my mouth at all. So at this point, I'm sitting there thinking, well, now what do I do about all of this? And then he looked at me and he said, I don't know what kind of stress you're under, but I think you need to go see somebody. And for whatever reason, I just burst into tears. I didn't even think at the time that I was under stress, but I immediately started crying and tears were rolling down my face. He referred me to a therapist, and we started to do some work on my stress in my life. I wouldn't say at the time I even necessarily felt that I had a lot of stress, but it was just the stress I think that we all can identify with, of being at the time a mother of 3 children and doing the volunteer work at school, doing my part-time job. Lots of things were going on. Nothing extraordinarily wrong or bad. It was just there was a lot going on for my life. So I see this therapist, and I start to see her. Shout out Dr. Patty Stevens who in Austin, Texas. That's who I was seeing at the time. And she said to me, we start talking about, I was raised by parents who taught me to put a smile on my face, to grit your teeth. Nobody likes a complainer, be positive, and to let go of things and move on. Now, let me just tell you, I think that this serves me very well in many, many situations. It is something that, when you can ruminate on things, it doesn't serve you well. But what it translated to me in my life, for many, many things in my life, was not to speak my truth. That when things were being said that I disagreed with or that didn't serve me, I would just grit my teeth and smile and let it go. This can turn into a lot of passive-aggressive behavior, I'm not going to lie. It can also turn into a lot of stress. And I can remember the day that Dr. Stevens looked at me and she said, isn't it funny that you gritting your teeth and not speaking has literally resulted in your mouth, the opening of your mouth getting smaller and smaller and smaller? That your body is literally stopping you from speaking because you have been doing this so long. And that was such an aha moment for me, as Oprah Winfrey would say, because I had never really thought about the power of gritting your teeth, right? Your jaw muscles are so strong, but that by just putting that smile on my face, that in some ways had served me so well, was also causing me pain emotionally as well as pain physically. So fast forward, I'm involved in yoga at the time. And as you come to know me, you will find that I get into things. And when I'm into things, I am all into things. I do them every single day. I want to learn everything there is to know about it. I want to read the books. I want to teach people. I think I need to bring other people in. I should have been an evangelist. That's just kind of my nature. I love to share what I think has been important things for me. So I start my yoga journey. This is probably about 2005. So I'm thinking about 20 years ago now. So I was in my early 40s at that point. And I got really into all the philosophical parts of yoga. I was not into what I call gym yoga. I wanted to learn about the sutras of Patanjali. I wanted to learn about the history. I wanted to immerse myself in the whole yoga culture. One of the things that I first heard a teacher say to me was, she talked about the wisdom of the body. And I thought, well, that's kind of interesting. And it very much aligned up with what Dr. Stevens was sharing with me at the time. This wisdom of the body was a new concept to me. But it was basically my yoga teacher at the time. We were doing balancing poses. And I'm not good at balancing poses. I'm very flexible, but when it comes to balance, every time I'd go to yoga class, it's like, and today we're going to do balancing poses. I would think, oh, geez. I could barely get my foot off the ground and I would tip over. So anyway, we are working on balancing poses, and Jessica Montgomery is walking around. That's my yoga teacher at the time. And she's walking around and she comes over to me and she says, release your jaw. And I looked at her, I'm trying to balance, and I'm like, what do you mean release my jaw? She said, release your jaw. Your jaw isn't going to help you balance. Okay, y'all, that was a big moment for me. My jaw was not going to help me balance. I started, though, becoming aware of how much, not only did I grit my teeth when I didn't want to say things, I gritted my teeth anytime I was struggling with something. I would grit my teeth, and she's like, you can't balance any better by gritting your teeth. In fact, you have to relax into it. And I started to kind of adopt this philosophy of just noticing, which is the great part about yoga, right? You just start to notice things in your life that correlate to your practice. We have a saying in yoga, as it is on the mat, so it is in life. What does that mean? Well, when you do a yoga practice, they call it practice for a reason. They say we practice on the mat so we're better with the yoga of life, the actual work that we have to do in our own life. And as it is on the mat, so it is in life for me. Let's go back to that very, very first thing I said. I was very flexible, but not very balanced. This showed up on my yoga mat, and it shows up in my life. I can move through things and plans can change, and it doesn't bother me at all. But I'm not very balanced. When I get into something, I'm all into it. So I started to be sensitive and seeing how this played out in many areas of my life off the mat as well. Fast forward, we're talking about, this jaw being this issue. And I started thinking about my jaw, right? And how it had served me and also created problems for me. And I want to go back to a bit of my childhood. You're like, oh gosh, here we go. You're going to learn a lot about me. But one of the things, I was raised by parents who were very much positive people. You look at the world through, we called our mother Pollyanna glasses, and nobody likes a bitch, right? Let's just face it. Ain't nobody likes a bitch. So to try to be a positive, and we all have issues that we go through, and, put on your big girl panties and move forward. This is a tool that has served me quite well at certain points in my life, but at certain points it has not. Now, I want to talk a bit about how, my parents, I am very blessed. I still have them. Both alive and kicking and doing well at 92. They'll be 93 this summer. They live in their own home, and they have taught me so many great life skills and life lessons that have served me well. But they come from a time in they brought their things to the party, as we like to say. When they were growing up, it was the time of the Depression. My mother's father, my maternal grandfather, Herman Pete Boppenmeyer, served in World War II, and he was gone for 4 years of her life during, I think, like second, third, fourth grade, roughly. He served in the Battle of the Bulge. He was around at Normandy. He had some pretty impactful, hardcore war experiences. And he was also gone at a period of my mother's life when she was a young girl growing up. So her experience, she watched her mother deal with her, the absence of her husband while he was at war. And it was just a different time, right? So they learned what you did was there wasn't time to sit around and wring your hands and stare at your navel. You had to just get things done. And everybody around you were dealing with husbands, brothers, uncles, grandfathers who were off at war at the time. So your story wasn't unique. It was hard, and everybody was in there. And it wasn't a time where you talked about what your problems were, because everybody had them, right? And at the same time, my father, his own story, he is the oldest of three children. He has a brother and a sister that were 5 years younger than he was, twins. And his story was that the only memory he has of his father was the day that his dad left. My dad was 4.5 years old, and my grandmother was 8 months pregnant with twins. And my dad remembers him getting into a car and driving off, and his mother standing on the front porch crying, "Come back." How does that impact people, right? That experience informed who he is and became the guiding influence in his life of he watched his mother make do. His mother had to get a quick divorce because she was a school teacher by training. And at that time in 1937, 38, you couldn't be a school teacher if you were a married woman, but you could if you were divorced. So she got divorced so she could support the family. And, again, my dad grew up finding odd jobs, doing things. He was very entrepreneurial. The things that he did were like, there wasn't the time to sit around and be sad about stuff. You had to figure out how to earn money and how to get out there and do it. So that informed who they were, which in turn, the kind of parents that they were to my sisters and me. And this positive attitude has served me very, very well. And I'm so grateful for it. And it also, at times, has been not so healthy for me. So here I am as an adult, and I'm still processing things through this. Grit your teeth and put a smile on it. And, I think that if you look at do any work on yourself or, read books, there's a lot to be said that we learn strategies as a child for survival and coping that serve us and protect us at the time. But then as we get older, some of those patterns of behavior need to change. And that was the truth with my job. So I started to learn how gritting my teeth was not serving me very well, but that you also have to learn to share who I had to learn, that sharing my voice and being true to who I am helps me. And I believe it helps other people. And so that's how this podcast in some ways was born. When I sit here and think about why am I doing this? And more importantly, why should you care and spend your valuable time listening? I don't think that I am necessarily unique. In fact, I am unique. I am unique, but we're all unique. My stories aren't unique. I think we all, particularly, and this is where I'm going to, as I speak with women my age, going through different stages in their own life of launching their children and retiring and coming to terms with healthcare issues and their families, that we all have this time in our life where as I talk to a lot of women, those things are not unique. What's unique is our own path and how we choose to follow it, right? But sometimes what we think is, I'm the only one that's going through this. I am the only person that has had these unhappy thoughts, angry thoughts, sad thoughts. And I feel like that when you have them, again, Dr. Patty Stevens would say to me, Pam, you have this way of categorizing feelings. These are good feelings and these are bad feelings. It's good to be happy. It's good to be positive. It's good to be joyful. It's bad to be sad. It's bad to be angry. It's bad to be mad, right? And she said, feelings aren't good or bad. They are just what is. Or my friend Colleen likes to say, one of her favorite sayings that I adopted years ago, she'll say, Pam, it's not good news or bad news. It's just the news. And that's what your feelings are. Your feelings aren't good or bad. They're just information. They give you information on which to act on your life. And what I had done is gotten into this habit of classifying my feelings as good or bad. And if it was a bad feeling, you had to stick it down. If it fell in the bad category for me, then it wasn't something that I should talk about, that I should think about, that I should ruminate on. I needed to wrap it up in a neat little box and put it on the shelf and put a smile on the face, and off I go. It serves you well certain times, but it doesn't in other times. And so what I started to find is, as I shared my experiences with other friends and new acquaintances, as we talked about this, there was such a commonality as I listened to their stories of much the same thing, right? And, when we are young mothers, or this was my experience, when I was a young mother, I call it the kind of the elementary school ages where and even more so from that, when the kids are growing up, we're always trying to put the face on it of everything is going great in my life, right? My kids are GT. My kid won the science fair. My kid is on the D1 soccer team. We attached so much of our identity to who we are based on who our children were and what they were what they were doing. We didn't want to say, my kid's dumb as mud. No, I'm not, whatever, that being funny there. But, the hardships and the challenges that were faced, that when we looked around us and we saw everybody else seem to be doing it right and shining bright. And what did we have? And if we felt like we didn't add up to that perfect home and that perfect mom world and that perfect situation, right? So what happens when you do that? And you view the world through that everybody else has their shit together and I'm the one that doesn't, it becomes really lonely and really painful. And what I discovered is, we were doing that to ourselves in the 90s, right? When we were raising our kids. It's even worse now with social media, right? How many times have we said we compare our everyday lives to somebody's online highlight real life, real being real, REEL, not REAL. We compare our REAL life to their REEL life. Those two things are not congruent, right? And so we see it all the time. It's easy to go, wow, look at how pretty she is. Look at the vacations they're going on. Look at how all their kids come home for Mother's Day and birthdays and celebrations. And look at the happy things she and her husband are doing. And it can feel like everybody else has it together. And you're the only one that's sitting there going, this is not the life I thought I was going to be living right now. And when I say that, I don't mean the whole life. I mean just the whole idea, right, of you're your image of what it was going to be and then where you are sometimes can feel very opposite of stuff. And then it's that's further complicated by the fact that everybody else seems to be okay with where they are, flourishing where they are, celebrating where they are, but you're not, right? So that's hard and that is painful. And it can be isolating because what you do is you start telling yourself stories. My friend Cass used to say to me that she said, one of the things she loved about me, we raised our boys together back in Circle C. And she would say to me, one of the things I always loved about you, Pam, was that you were just really real with it. You weren't trying to shine the spotlight on how easy it was and how great it was and how great your kids were. And I do have great kids, by the way. I want to say that. But I did always feel like I looked at life through these things of, I don't know how many of y'all I know are familiar with Irma Bombeck. She was an awesome, humorous columnist she was probably the first woman that I knew that said, life isn't June Cleaver with pearls on while you are, vacuuming and cooking dinner. She showed the messy, difficult, fun side of being a mom, the parts that people weren't highlighting when they wrote to Dear Abby, or that you saw on television shows, the Huxtables. Remember the Huxtables? When you saw the Huxtables or the Brady Bunch or any of that, right? Irma Bombeck was always I loved her. She was who I wanted to emulate as a writer. Just that slice of life of what is real life. And when you share what's real, it doesn't make people think less of you. It makes people feel more connected to you. They say, oh my gosh, that happened to you. That happened to me too. That happened to me too. And it is in those moments of connection that we feel seen, that we are able to go, I don't have to do this. I'm not the only one. I don't have to do it by myself. So as this podcast has some, I can't even tell you, this has been the most organic, weirdest, craziest ride in the last few weeks of having this podcast take shape and come online. And I don't like the fact that I am not doing it perfectly. That's something that I struggle with, but I'm doing it anyway. I'm scared, y'all. I'm very scared with the whole idea that people won't listen to me. I'm also scared that people will listen to me. And I'm doing it anyway because I think that my greatest strength is that I am a connector. I am or my sister, I'm not sure if it was my sister Gail or my friend Cheryl DeGan, who said to me one time, you, Pam Walsh, are a collector of people. A collector of people. And it's kind of true. I do. I like to collect people. I feel my life is very rich. The more people that I can find that I can connect with and to hear their stories is a lot. It's very meaningful to me, and it makes me feel life is good, right? And I am so grateful. Every single person that has come into my life has taught me lessons. I am richly blessed with good friends. You'll get to meet some of them and hear a lot about them in the coming episodes. But it is through my friends that I've been able to talk things out loud with, that I have learned about myself and discovered truths about other people that are commonalities amongst us all. And I believe that we can benefit from those conversations. I believe I get stronger when I talk. I'm an out loud processor. I see that this new avenue, being in the podcasting world, is something new for me. And let me tell you, I have learned so much in such a short amount of time, and there is so much more to learn than I ever can grasp. But I have to tell you, I'm so grateful to Adjacent Media. Shout out to Shelly and Shody, because they have been my coaches. They have been my caretakers. They have provided me with this platform that I can't believe I have it. And I keep saying, well, just wait. I need to do some more research on this and figure this whole thing out. And it's got to be perfect before I do it. And they have encouraged me and said, do it anyway. Just start recording. Hit the record button. So that's where I am. I'm hitting the record button. I'm doing it scared. And I'm diving into the deep end of the ocean without a life jacket on. Well, that's not true. Shelly and Shody are throwing me some life jackets and giving me a paddle or two to swim with. But I will tell you, and I got connected with, how did I come up with Shelly and Shody? Because my therapist, Dr. Kyle, looked at me in the conversation of the way I process stuff, and I said something about a podcast, and she said, girl, you need a podcast. And I know just who to make it happen. And the next thing I know, bada boom, bada bing, bada bum, I'm hooked up with Shody and Shelly, and I'm making a podcast. And I'm not so sure, as I've said before, what it means when your therapist says you need your own podcast. But here we are, and here we go. So with that, there's a plane to catch back to Austin, Texas, and I am going to wrap this up. I want you to know I'm grateful that you're giving this a listen. I hope that you will stick with me as I stumble and fumble through these first few episodes and find my voice. I have so many things that I want to share with you, but these are not because I think that I am particularly full of wisdom and insight, but because I am blessed to be surrounded by those who have shared their life and their wisdom and their insight with me. And I hope many of you will come to me and share your stories. And know, girlfriends, that when you live your life out loud, you give people the courage and the inspiration to live theirs that way as well, with whatever voice that is, because they're all meaningful, they're all powerful, and they're all important in the conversation. So live your life out loud, because gritting your teeth gives you TMJ.